Welcome to the Q&A Ask the Chief portion of our National Night Out celebration. National Night Out is very important to the city of New Bern. It's the time when our citizens join the police department to highlight the partnership that we have in our community in keeping our community safe. A safe place to live, work, and visit. And I know, speaking for myself, and I'm sure the captains I have with me, Captain Daniels, and also Captain Fuller. Captain Daniels is the commander of our Criminal Investigations Division. Captain Fuller is the commander of our Operations Division. Absent from us today is Captain Morrison Brown, and she is the captain of our Service Division. But as I was saying, I'm sure I speak for all captains that we really value our partnership. We really value the support that we receive throughout the year from each and every citizen in the city of New Bern. We have asked communities to join us in this year's National Night Out, which is going to be a little different than previous National Night Out. Previously, we would go to each community and kind of celebrate in individual communities where we encourage neighbors to get to know each other, but obviously because of the pandemic this year, we had to do things a little different. So we're celebrating National Night Out throughout the entire month, and this is but one event. So we've asked individual communities to submit questions to their neighborhood coordinator, and that's what we're here to do at this moment, is to answer the questions. So I'll start, and we'll basically have discussion on the questions, so feel free to chime in anywhere you want to, captains. First, from Sunnyside community, the question is, do all law enforcement officers in the county attend sensitivity training? I'll start by saying I can't speak for every law enforcement agency in the county, but I do know the New Bern Police Department does spend a considerable amount of time sending our officers to all types of training, and one type of training is obviously sensitivity training.
Yes, sir. We attend what is termed as a juvenile minority sensitivity training annually, and it covers a range of topics picked by the state each year that is a community concern throughout the state, and we look at that training and figure out how it best fits us. And as I said, it addresses a couple different topics with juveniles, minorities, and other topics that are sensitive around the state.
Okay, good. So it's important. We recognize the importance of being sensitive to the needs of our community. We recognize the importance of our interaction with the community. And we have an opportunity. I guess you can say we're probably the most visible part of our government. So we know that the impression that people get from us is the impression that they get of our city government. So we try to make sure we're good stewards with that responsibility. And the training is continual. The next question from Sunnyside is, what are local police departments doing to bridge the gap between local law enforcement and citizens given current instances of violence in the U.S.? Captain Daniels, you want to address that?
Sure. I'm happy to report that the New Bern Police Department is doing a great job at bridging the gap. If we have a gap, we're working hard to reduce that gap through various community organizations, community events such as National Night Out, Citizens Police Academy, Badge Faith and Community Fund Day. Lots of events that we're doing to bridge that gap.
Okay, and I guess the question says, given the current incidence of violence in the U.S., and I'm happy to say that we didn't wait until the violence that has erupted across our country to begin these programs, but we have been doing these programs for years and years and years, where we invite the community to be a part of us, either through some of the programs that was mentioned, such as Citizen Police Academy, through our citizen volunteer group. We're always looking for opportunities for our community to be a part of us, not a part from us. So that's important. Being a part gives us an opportunity to build that trust, and that's what's so important as we do our job, is having trust of our community. Anybody got anything else to add on that?
I think the only thing I would add is if there's a gap that you see, that bring it to our attention and maybe we're not aware of it, and we can begin to build that or bridge that gap in an area that we're not aware of.
You know, I was going to say the same thing, Chief. We're fortunate in New Bern to have the community partnerships that we do, but there's always room for improvement and things that we can do better, and the only way to do that is to work together as a community, and if you have suggestions, bring it to us.
Another question from Ghent community. This is a good question. Is it possible for Ghent to get security cameras in the median where it would monitor, where it could be monitored by police? That's a good question. And I'm sure a lot of communities would have the same question if they could have a camera in their community that could be monitored by police. But unfortunately, it would be almost impossible for the police department to monitor cameras throughout the city.
Yeah, okay.
So we encourage, I would encourage citizens to seek their own security system in their own home, a system where obviously they have these systems now where you can view your camera on your phone. We have systems now that record, and if you're interested in the police looking at it, if you have a system that records and a crime occurs in your community, then obviously we can come and view the footage of the film. That would be the best solution, but something that we could view real time would be impossible.
Do you have something?
No, I was going to agree with the chief that though it's probably impossible to put a camera in every community, we have had great successes already from residents that have had various cameras, security cameras. They've identified persons of interest in various crimes, whether they were the victim or not, but they saw something suspicious on their camera and they called us. See something, say something.
And that's all about the partnership with the community, and where the community partners with the police department to solve the crimes. So if they have that video that shows the crime, and they're benefiting their community as well as the police department.
Okay. Good. DeGraffney says, Chief, what are the options available to police if groups come into our community to protest, and the protest turns violent? What options?
Well, the police department has a team that is specifically trained for civil disturbances. They've received really good training. They know what they're doing, and we've built partnerships with some surrounding agencies that if we need additional manpower, we can pose that request, and other agencies will send officers to assist us. It becomes dangerous if the community becomes involved in those to help us, and per se, it puts undue risk on the community members themselves. So we ask that the community allows us to handle those situations when it becomes a civil disturbance in their neighborhood, or we hope that never happens, but if it does.
I'll just piggyback on it. We work great with various agencies around, and we have our own team, and they're capable. They've received training outside of the state of North Carolina. We've received some top-notch training, but we also partner with other agencies, and we've got a good partnership to make sure that we're able to address those concerns.
So obviously then our goal is to make sure that every citizen has the right for peaceful protest, and we only really need to get involved should it turn violent. And hopefully that won't happen in the city of New Bern. We've been very fortunate over the last several weeks of peaceful protests in our city, and we need to make sure that we continue to respect the rights of people to peacefully protest. Another question is, what are property owners' rights to protect their homes and business in the event of violent riots and protests?
Well, every individual has a right to protect themselves if they have an imminent fear of death or a great serious bodily injury. The law allows the protection of human life, does not allow the protection of property. So there's no ability for a citizen to use deadly force to protect themselves or their property, only themselves.
I don't know that the question is necessarily asking all about deadly force. You know, a property owner can protect their property. You just can't resort to using deadly force type of force to stop someone from stealing your property. So if you see someone doing that, you can certainly say, hey, you know, confront them, call law enforcement will respond, but you just can't use deadly force to defend your own personal property.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all saying the same thing. We don't want you to get yourself into a situation where you have to use deadly force, Obviously, we expect you to try to protect your property, but only go as far as you feel comfortable. In other words, if you don't feel comfortable approaching someone and telling them to stop and leave your property alone, then that's what we're here for, to handle those difficult problems. So probably the best solution is, number one, keep your property secure, and then number two, if it gets to that point that you need some assistance, to call the police department, and they'll definitely come and aid you in that. Okay, Taberna, got a question from Taberna. And the question is, what is the planned strategy for police and other emergency services regarding response time when officers are out of the district during the US 70 construction?
So we'll speak predominantly for the New Bern Police Department during this construction because we can't answer for other agencies. But with the police department, we have officers that are dedicated to what we call our battleground district, which is most of it is on the James City side of New Bern, the city limits there in the James City area. And we have officers, as I said, assigned there, and they'll continue to be assigned there throughout this, patrolling the neighborhoods and the businesses that are in that area. We've also asked for some assistance from the Sheriff's Department during that time for any high-risk type calls that need a higher level of response, and they've offered that assistance if they're also in that area. So we continue to patrol, build out partnerships with our surrounding law enforcement agencies, and I hope that everybody remains safe during that construction time.
And we're going to make every attempt to make sure that we keep an officer out on the Taberna, Carolina Colors side of James City during the construction phase. That's our number one goal. But obviously, we all know there may be a time that they may have to come into the city for some reason. And as the captain said, we're partnering with the Sheriff's Department or other law enforcement agencies to support us in this. And we're also working on other measures that maybe might result in officers being out in that area. As the community knows out that way, they have a fire station out there, and I would say the fire department is probably more likely than not to have someone there to respond, because I understand that when fire engines make calls, they usually backfill stations. So if engine leaves one station, they somehow backfill another, which is a great thing. Police can always learn from the fire department. So hopefully one day we'll get to that point where we can backfill when we have to move officers around. We do have 6 community policing areas in the city, and the reason we call them community policing areas and the reason we have named them after landmarks in the city is because if we call it Beat 122, that really would mean nothing to a community. But everybody can identify where Battleground is, which is out near the Carolina Colors and Taberna area. Here's a question that starts to, I guess it's directed at me because it says, it's from Carolina Colors, and it says, after 40 plus years of police work, you have finally decided to retire. Yippee! And it says, congratulations, is well deserved. Now that you will have all the spare time, what do you plan to do to keep yourself busy and enjoying your retirement? Well, I don't know if I'll have many plans, because I think my wife probably has all the plans already scheduled for me.
They always do.
So I might need you guys to give me a call and say, hey, Chief, come in here, let me ask you a question just to get me out the house so I don't have to do what they call, what I've heard is referred to as honeydews. I don't like honeydew melons, so I'm sure I'm not going to like honeydew jobs. So but I am seriously looking forward to retirement, looking forward to doing other things. It's just a new chapter in my life. It's not the end, obviously, it's the beginning. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'll always cherish the experience that I've had in my profession, the experience that I've had here. Another question that we have is, and you guys can certainly chime in on this. It says, during your term as New Bern Police Chief, what, in your opinion, was your most rewarding accomplishment that benefited your officers? I would like to think the goal of any leader of any company, I especially think my goal as police chief is assisting officers to reach their maximum potential. I always call it self-actualizing. What do you see yourself as being in the future? And I think my attempt in helping officers reach their potential would be their greatest benefit. And some of the things that I think we've done as a group to achieve that is obviously securing funding for training. Our mayor and our city council has been very supportive in making sure that we have a adequate budget to allow officers to go and train and get specialized training. We have a program within our agencies where officers serve in specialized positions only for a limited period of time. Otherwise, you don't become a detective and you're a detective for life, or you don't become a canine officer and you're a canine officer for life. Because there's other people in the agencies that might want to be a detective or a canine officer. So you have 4 to 6 years to experience a specialty, and then someone else can come in and be a specialty and experience that specialty. Also, we encourage officers to work cases as far as they can. If they can't be a detective, there's no reason why they can't be afforded the opportunity and the time and the training to work these complex cases and to, again, be all that they can be and reach their potential. And maybe one day, like I've had the opportunity, they can wind up being the chief of police.
Chief, I think you hit the nail on the head as an accomplishment. Challenging your employees is a huge accomplishment, and it also benefits that employee and the agency, and then the community ultimately benefits. And you have certainly been a challenge to me at times, and I appreciate it. Some days I didn't necessarily see it, but you have been, and I appreciate it. I wouldn't be where I am at today if it weren't for some of those challenges. So congratulations on your retirement.
Yes, sir, definitely. Congratulations.
Okay, and then it says, likewise, what was your most rewarding accomplishment that benefited the citizens of New Bern? What was rewarding to me that I think benefited the citizens of New Bern was the fact that the citizens took part in law enforcement here in the city. So often, citizens in many communities across our nation wants to sit back and point fingers at law enforcement, point fingers at other folks for problems that exist in the community. Not so here in the city of New Bern. The word partnership is something that we use quite frequently here, and it's important that we have a partnership with our community. And our community certainly has stepped up to the plate with all the many partnerships we have with our landlords, with all our youth programs, with our citizen volunteers, with our Citizens Police Academy, with our Explorer Post. I could just go on and name the many programs that we have partnered with our community, not the least of which is our faith-based community. Very supportive, very involved, and again, the only way to build trust is to get to know someone. And you can't get to know someone if you don't become a part, or you don't have experiences with the person that you're trying to get to know. And so often police only have experiences when you're enforcing the law, but I'm happy to say here in the city of New Bern, we try to emphasize celebration. We invite our community to our celebrations. A lot of times we have promotions or achievements that officers make, officer of the year, or things like that. We invite our community in to celebrate with us because it's important that, and I always have this saying when I go from meeting to meeting or Citizen Police Academy, that if we are successful, it's because we being the police is successful, because the community is successful. If we're not successful, we're all failed. The community failed, police department failed. We all failed together. We all achieve success together. Okay, and our next question comes from the Kings Road community, and we all know how important the Kings Road community is. And National Night Out, that's one of the spots where we really, really have a good time. Great food, a lot of people, very active, always involved in what goes on here at the police department. And the question is, does New Bern have a history of police being called for mental health issues more than for crime activities? I wouldn't say it's more for crime activities, but I think we have some stats on that, don't we?
We do have some stats, and we have a certain type of calls that are what we call catted, which is how our dispatch logs the call. And there's mental health calls, there's overdose calls, things of that nature that are obvious mental health related. And out of those are, in about a year and a half, a little over 560 out of 76,000 plus calls for service. So it's just under 1% of the CADD calls. But one thing to keep in mind is mental health's a part of a lot of our calls, that not necessarily CADD at that, but they are part of our calls for service, such as domestic violence. There's some mental health issues involved with those. So we can't always capture the amount of mental health that is associated with all of our calls for service.
And I want to clarify what CADD means. CADD means is the way that we record a call come in. So what the captain is saying is that over 570 calls are classified or CADD as mental health calls. But again, as Captain said, a lot of our calls may have a mental health component to it. So it is something very serious that we deal with day in and day out.
I think as the captain pointed out, we do have a lot of calls that are mental health related. It might not come in as mental health, but substance abuse and you name it. We're fortunate that we do train our officers to recognize those types of mental health issues, because not everything is an arrest call. Some of it's the folks looking for mental health help, looking for assistance, and we train our officers so they can recognize those needs and try to provide that assistance when needed.
And we do recognize the fact that we probably don't have adequate training to deal with this. We do the best that we can, and probably in some instances we probably really don't need to be involved at all. But because order has been disrupted, then we have to come in and restore order. And a lot of times to restore order when a mental person is involved is very difficult. We are working on some programs where maybe we can partner with our social services or our mental health professionals to assist us in these calls. So stay tuned for that. Maybe we'll come up with something. We're working on it. Another question from Kings Row is, in the light of recent police incidents that have happened across the country, does New Bern Police Department need to do training any differently than we do now?
There's, in terms of training, any training can be good training, and we would certainly not turn down the opportunity to train. We are very fortunate here, as you mentioned earlier, Chief, that the mayor and the Board of Aldermen supports us in our training needs and provides those resources to do training. With that, we always welcome additional new training. We're constantly searching for new training ideas and opportunities to make our officers better.
And I would only add that some of the more recent news media attention and some techniques that law enforcement agencies use around the country is, we've already had some training that doesn't allow some of those techniques, and we've had that for many years, and we've trained annually on the prohibition to certain techniques, such as chokeholds and things of that nature. So I think we've had a good basis of training, and any more training would only benefit us even more.
Right, and we've had the opportunity to address the issue of a can't wait, and I'm glad to say that we didn't wait.
That's right.
That we were pretty much ahead of the curve in terms of those points that were so important in that a can't wait. And it's incumbent upon us and every law enforcement agency to make sure that we do things that protect our citizens. We're not out here to injure our citizens, we're out here to protect our citizens. And what's very important to us is that if there becomes a disagreement between an officer and a citizen, that the citizen complies with the officer's request. Not saying that complying means that the officer is correct, but there are means and methods to deal with an officer who is giving you bad information, or who's making a bad arrest, or who's doing things that's not appropriate. And if you just comply with the officer and make a complaint later, then we can certainly deal with the situation and straighten out the issue.
That training, that's a benefit from being nationally accredited. That accreditation through Commission of Law Enforcement Accreditation provides mandates that officers have to have this type of training every year. And we've been accredited for several times, and we get that training.
Yes. So I think where we can always do better, I think we're continuing to stay on that road of making sure that everybody is treated fairly. Again, can't overemphasize the importance of our community working with us and the importance of our community being a part of the police department. And I want to thank the community. We are going to, over the next several weeks, visit some 17 communities where we will have the parade of lights. And what that involves is that we reached out to neighborhood coordinators to give us a route that the police can travel through their community in the hours of after dusk, I guess, and to turn on the lights and sirens and just travel through the community and make a lot of noise, and hopefully our community will come out into their yards or stand in their doorways or stand on their porches and wave, and so we can show our community just how much we appreciate them. Very important to this is visiting our assisted living places. We're also going to visit our assisted living places because we want to make sure we let our senior citizens know that they're not forgotten. Although they're somewhat confined because we can't go in, we still want the parade of lights around their facilities. So we're very excited about getting into communities. We're very excited about getting into assisted living places. And I wish and I hope that everyone that joins us, and we're looking forward to seeing you, and hopefully we'll do another question and answer session sometime soon. Thank you so much.